Well, it's been a nice few weeks off as the Elite Cup Series continued its action at the top tier level, but the Amateur Cup Series is ready to come back, and they're going to do it today at Grand Detour Raceway in Grand Detour, Illinois. This is the fourth race of the NFRN Amateur Cup Series season. Hello again, everybody. My name is Colin Denton on the call for RVN today, and in this Grand Detour 300, we're going to see who's going to be able to take the next victory. We saw Donnie Moore do it at Columbia, Dwayne Calloway at Pikes Peak, and Chris Harley at Pigs Cliff. Who's going to be the next driver that's going to be able to lock themselves into the chase? And here today at Grand Detour, this is the first time we've had a lower series do a standalone race. They'll be the only series racing this weekend, and obviously a big time for these drivers to step up. Obviously, the drivers up top don't race down. That's just the beauty of how this league works, but still an opportunity for some of those part-timers to try to steal a victory from the Truck Series. Obviously, Kenny Knox in this series was able to steal one from the Elite Cup Series drivers. Can a Truck Series driver do it here today? We are going to find that out. The last time we went racing, we were at Pigs Cliff Superspeedway in Denver, but today we're heading to a much smaller place, Grand Detour, Illinois, a population of 429, which is an unincorporated village of Ogle County, but a really fun fact, this is the settling place of John Deere, and this is the place where he created the steel plow, so a lot more historical significance for this very small place, and this is where we'll be racing today. And with racing here today, we also had to go through our part-time qualifying with Mike Simpson and Barry Watson leading the way, and they got very racy to start off, going through turns 3 and 4, almost 4 wide among these part-time drivers, and then Adam Kuhn starting to slide back a little bit. Tyler Reed, able to get to the edge of James Smith in that number 2 car, takes the advantage on the bottom line in turns 1 and 2, and that would eventually propel Tyler Reed to get into the spot he needed to qualify. And as we see, Barry Watson and Hunter Cox lead the charge to get to the finish line first, but Tyler Reed is going to be able to take the final spot to qualify for this one. And looking at those results, Barry Watson, Hunter Cox, Mike Simpson, Jesse McConna, Adam Kuhn, and Tyler Reed going to be the guys that are able to qualify for this one. All of them have made starts in the past. Taylor the Pig is once again going to be just outside. James Smith, Billy Thompson, Steve Ray as well. And here's the rest of those results as they ran for trying to qualify for this Amateur Cup Series race. But now that they're stacked up in this line, we're going to see who's going to take home the victory today. Time to send you down trackside and get the starting command for today's race.
Race fans, it's time for the most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome local Toyota owner from Haley Toyota, Devon Smith, to give the command.
Drivers, start your engines.
As we get ready to start this one up, let's take a look at the starting order for today's race, and Robert Harrison, that number 91 Team Realtree Chevrolet, is going to be able to start on the front row for the second race in a row. Started second place last week and will start on the pole today. And Anthony Lopez in the number 75 Weather Channel Toyota, also going to make his second front row start of the season. He started on the pole at Columbia. John Gilbert starts on place number 3 after earning his first career top 10 at Pigs Cliff, finishing 7th. Andy Coleman was looking really promising until he crashed out of 5th place and qualifies 4th today. Barry Watson, making his 4th start as a part-timer, made every race so far this season. Sparky the Sun Devil in his best starting spot of the year, started 30th, 29th, and 27th in previous races, and 31st in points. Joey Radcliffe earned his best finish of the year, 13th at Pigs Cliff, starting 7th place. And then we have all 3 of our winners in a row, starting with Chris Harley, the current points leader and Pigs Cliff winner, starting in place number 8. Moving backward, Donnie Moore won at Columbia and runs 5th in points, sliding back a little bit after some subpar performances, and Dwayne Calloway, the Pikes Peak winner, currently 2nd in points and rounding out the top 10. In the 6th row, we see the RPG7 Motorsports driver of Jacob Rose, who suffered the past 2 races after getting a top 10 run at Columbia, and the 2-time Champions League winner Eric Van Arsdale, running in 12th place to start off this one. Coming off a huge victory at Mirage in the Elite Cup Series, the first driver to ever win up a series, Kenny Knox starting in place number 13 here today, and Kyle Law, who qualified for the Columbia 500, but is suffering in this league, is going to be in place number 14, which is exactly where he finished at Pigs Cliff. Jay Jefferson has been running poorly since finishing 13th at Columbia, but he'll round out the top 15, and Jake Thomas looking to represent Western Motorsports in the number 72 Toyota outside of row 8. 19-car fan earned his first career top 5 last race, but lost the tiebreaker to try to qualify for the Elite Cup Series competitions. He starts in place 17 to his outside Hunter Cox, a part-timer making his 3rd Amateur Cup Series start. And the driver that 19-car fan lost that tiebreaker to, Herja Arvin Alonso, is going to start behind him in 19th place. He got a top 5 finish at Riki, his first career in that series. And Shane Borland has 1 top 10 so far this season, and 9th at Columbia, rounding out the top 20 today. So a lot of competitors here looking for their first victory as we enter the second quarter of the regular season. All 3 of those winners running in the top 5 in points right now. There always could be a spot for a surprise victor, but we'll have to see who it pans out to be. As the cars start to roll off, you'll see the rest of the starting order as well scrolling through the screen, and we come to this 3/4 mile track that has a bit of an interesting groove. It seems like the bottom of turns 1 and 2 seems to be beneficial for drivers, but top side of 3 and 4 gives the cars a lot of speed off of exit. It's going to come down to what kind of lanes do these drivers want to take, or do they use them in strategy to figure out how to progress their way up to the front. But we could see a lot of single file racing here today. Just a matter of who gets aggressive and tries to make the move first. Coming off of turn number 4, Harrison and Lopez leading the crowd, and the green flag flies at the front of the straightaway, and we're green here at Grand Detour. Robert Harrison pulls away with the lead, and Lopez dropped back to 3rd after starting on the outside of the front row. You see Colin Lindsay back here caught in some traffic, qualified outside of the top 20 despite leading the first practice. He has been performing pretty subpar, got a 17th place run at Columbia, but that's his best so far. The driver that got runner-up at the Elite Cup Series level last year, struggling to show in the lower tiered series, and pretty much the biggest surprise of the season so far. And now we see up here Barry Watson. We talked about his great qualifying performance, running 4th right now. He's qualified for every Amateur Cup race so far. And here's your Columbia winner in the Truck Series level, so definitely showing he has a spot here. And he made a great move on Adam Kuhn, who's also qualified in this race, to show that he does belong up in the next level if he can get there next season. Here we see the points leader Chris Harley won at Piggs Cliff, so he's the last race winner we've had in the Amateur Cup Series, and currently trying to make his rounds. He's fallen behind Callaway. And as we move up to look at him, he was your winner at Pikes Peak. See, the front of the field is pretty much gone single file. He ended up with a 9th place finish at Piggs Cliff, looking to see if he can make it 3 straight top 10s in a row. And you can say the same about this driver in number 38, Noah Kim. He led a lot of laps at Pikes Peak, but ended up with a 7th place finish. Almost seemed like he got robbed off of pit stops. A 6th place run at Piggs Cliff. So when he has speed in that number 38 Chevrolet, trying to qualify for some Elite Cup Series races on the side, able to make it at Riki. But the biggest prize he wants is a championship, so he's got to perform down at this level as well. Show that he can get those points. Speaking of the Elite Cup Series, Kenny Knox. He's your race 4 winner up there, Mirage. Surprised everybody grabbing the victory in his home state of California. It was a huge run for that number 76 driver. Now he's looking to see if he can grab his first career victory in the Amateur Cup Series. That would give him a playoff berth. But he's running pretty well in the point standings right now. Just can't lean on having a spot open in points. Here we see the 97 car. As 19-car fan who runs 15th in the points and trying to see if he can get into that top 14 to qualify for Elite Cup Series races. He lost out that tiebreaker to Alonso, who's 2 spots behind him. If he can beat Alonso in this race, that would help him get that spot, but obviously a lot of chance for point shuffling. Might not be a point shuffling opportunity for Chase Baldwin, who runs 45th in the points and is last among full-timers by a long shot. A good finish would probably bump him up maybe a little bit, but that would require a big run by that number 35 driver. Back here up at the front, Robert Harrison continues to lead. He has a best finish of 4th at Pikes Peak after crashing at Columbia and not being able to qualify for the Columbia 500. He's really stepped it up. Had great finishes in the past 2 races and put himself in contention for Elite Cup Series qualifying. So definitely a great run by the 91 driver, showing he has speed. Now he just has to execute and try to make up what he lost at Columbia. And Columbia was won by this driver, Donnie Moore, who runs 5th in the points right now. But he has a 6th place run going right now, so trying to make up for what he's lost in the past couple races, which were pretty mediocre performances. Western Motorsports trying to field 4 cars in this series, which is the largest team out of anybody in the league. See, Anthony Lopez obviously mentioned that he was the Columbia pole winner and started in his 2nd front row this time around on the outside of row number 1. Robert Harrison was able to do the opposite in back-to-back races, which was Pikes Cliff and then this race starting on the pole. Just in front of Lopez, John Gilbert got a best finish of 7th at Pikes Cliff, currently averaging around 18, which has put him in the points around the decade mark. He's able to qualify for Elite Cup Series competition, but looking for that victory that would put him up there among the playoff contenders. We look from up above and we're focusing on Griffin Lynn, who has also been a big contender in terms of getting back to the front of the points. We see this crowd is really strung out in a single file, so not a lot of passing going on right now. They're all running pretty much the preferred groove. Good on the bottom in 1 and 2, top on 3 and 4. Connor Mays, 2 runner-up finishes this season. He obviously wants a victory, and he wants it very badly for how close he's come, which included his run at Columbia. Almost had it in his grasp, but went too wide in turns 3 and 4. Opened the door wide open for Donnie Moore to take that victory from him. And then almost had to come back at Pikes Cliff, but Chris Harley really ran away with that one. And we also see TJ Smith, the subject of controversy, on probation this week. Needs to make sure that he keeps it under control in terms of aggressive incidents, but anything that is just incidental or not his fault does not count. And with 20 laps in the books, we're going to head to a quick commercial break. Robert Harrison continues to lead the charge here at Grand Detour. We'll be right back.
Stay, make me smile.
I'm car sick.
Tony, you're eating beef jerky.
What's your point?
Tony.
Back here at Grand Detour Raceway in Northern Illinois, and we return to see that not much has really changed. While we were away, Robert Harrison continues to lead the pack, and most everybody continues to run single file, though we do see a little bit of movement up there. I think that was AJ Jones trying to get around Jess McConnell on the low line. Clearly not going to work in that end of the track, maybe on the turn 1 and 2 side. Nearing a third of the way through the race, Eric Van Arsdale we're looking at right now. Currently running 7th in points, which is good for him now. Obviously wants the victory to clinch his playoff spot. Missed it last year, finishing 19th. Would like a little bit of redemption after that snub in the Elite Cup Series level. And Andy Coleman would also like some redemption. He was running 5th place before he got wrecked out of Pikes Cliff. and ended up finishing 30th in that one. Was not able to wheel the car back after hitting the catch fence, which was up on top of a hill. Major damage to that number 12 Dodge. Jacob Rose, after that 7th place run at Columbia, has 30th and 31st place finishes in the past 2 races. At an 8th place run right now would be a really good bit of confidence for the RPG7 Motorsports driver, which currently houses the points leader in the Elite Cup Series level, Stuart Braden. It's 3 cars up at the top tier. Rose is the only driver that's running down. It's pretty much their developmental driver in this series. Looking further back, you see Austin Rogers. Another one of those drivers that qualified for the Columbia 500 but is struggling a little bit right now. Currently running in the 40th position. Back here for a lot of other drivers that would like some decent runs, and we see Al Calloway trying to look to the inside in turns 3 and 4, not able to get it done. And there's been a little bit of internal conflicts with the team, which is Calloway Brothers Racing. Obviously, brother Dwayne winning at Pikes Peak and performing well. 6.67 average finish compared to Al's 24th. And Al's feeling like he's being left out of good equipment, feeling like there's been a bit of a shift in how they're focusing their resources, as we see pit stops under green flag are starting to happen. And Al was feeling like they should be focusing a little bit more on him to try to get him into the chase, and thinks that the 65 is getting more attention when he already has his chase berth locked up and running pretty decent in the points, obviously, with that average finish. We'll see how that situation develops throughout the season. But we see John Gilbert has taken pit stops. He was running 2nd at the time. Robert Harrison stayed out for another lap, but he's now come in, and he's off the screen right now. We'll focus on him when he comes around. Gilbert going for 4 tires, as is a lot of the people coming down right now. And here is Harrison pitting from the front of the pit lane. It's going to be a 4-tire stop from him. We'll see how the drivers cycle around. And I believe that there's John Gilbert coming around right now, and Gilbert with an incredibly fast stop. I wonder if Harrison got caught up in traffic from coming down a lap later than some of these other drivers, and they might have been pulling out as Harrison was coming in. That might have slowed him down, and Gilbert is going to be the beneficiary here. But it looks like there's actually a different strategy going on here, as we see Jake Thomas currently the leader, but hasn't come down pit road. He hasn't been one for great finishes so far, hasn't gotten a top 10, a best of 14th at Columbia, but not coming down at the moment. And I believe that everyone's thinking this is a 1 pit stop race. So I believe everyone that has pitted, which looks like all but 4 cars, kind of took a short pit on this strategy and is trying to see if they can make it to the end. I think they believe they can make it to the end on fuel, and we see Chris Harley, your current points leader, is also on this strategy. But obviously this tire wear is really affecting the drivers still out on the circuit, as cars that came down for pit stops are blowing by them right now. Here's the third of those cars that took the same strategy, and Adam Kuhn on his inside is the other car that took the same strategy. Now that pair is really blocking the pack, and wow, Kenny Knox splitting the two. Amazing move by the 76 car. We know that he has some driving skill in him after winning Mirage in the Elite Cup Series level. But man, that was a gutsy move right there for Knox, and Adam Kuhn's going to slip back after trying to make the move on TJ Ball, and he's going to see a complete slingshot off the outside line going right around him. Even cars are going to make the move on the outside of him in turns 1 and 2, where the inside is normally the better line, so that really shows how slow these 4 cars are going right now. Gilbert, Watson, and Harrison have unlapped themselves, and we're going to see more of those get back on the lead lap as time progresses. So at the moment we see, and now we actually see Gilbert as he's making the moves past the guys that have elected to stay out. So he's back on the lead lap now. The further he can get back up the Kuhn, the further they're going to be able to progress. But we'll see how the strategy works out for Thomas and company, and I think they're really banking on a yellow flag, which we have not seen so far in this race. But if they're able to get that caution flag, that's going to be able to keep them on the lead lap. I don't see them staying on the lead lap if they come down at any point under green flag conditions. So it's a really gutsy strategy for the number 72, as well as your current points leader. This could really go badly for Harley to the point that he loses that points lead. Possibly falls to the bottom end of the top 10 if he falls laps down. You can obviously see a lot of cars going by, but not the same on the 49's sake. He's actually holding up a lot of drivers, including AJ Jones, Jacob Rosen. Now we see some of the drivers cut down low. Craig Martin, Herjolf and Alonso. Jacob Rose really getting hung out to dry. Colin Lindsay's getting stuck up there, and we told everybody that he was looking for a good finish to try to capitalize on a bad season, and Harley just goes around. And there is your caution flag, but it's going to come at the expense of one of the drivers that was trying to stay out, and there goes Gilbert. And even after he spins, Harley still might be in like 3rd place or something like that. And I think Ball and Watson just beat him out there. Oh, and what's this? Jake Thomas rubbing with Eric Van Arsdale. And they're going down toward pit road wall, and Van Arsdale in the wall. And we just had this situation 2 weeks ago at Mirage, and now Van Arsdale is on the receiving end of that one as Jake Thomas unable to get to pit road. And the 72 stuck out on the racetrack as the rest of the field comes down. We talked about how TJ Smith was the one that really aggressed the number 04 of Jack Porkins and then put himself in the wall. But in this case, Jake Thomas ended up pushing Van Arsdale down to into the wall as the 72 was trying to get on the pit road. Obviously, he stayed out for that exact reason. The 67 had come down. But now the 67 messed up everywhere. Hood smashed in, car completely totaled. And he's not going to be able to... He could possibly fall out of the top 14 at this point, as he was running 7th in points. A great run for the veteran driver in this season. And now we see the 72 coming down to take his service. And his team is livid right now. They thought they were going to be able to make their pit stop right then and there and possibly come out with a lead. Could contend for a victory. And now the 67 got in their way. But we really don't know who's at fault here. Now let's take a look at the video. And this is the incident that originally brought out the caution. So Harley was one of those guys that stood out, and then he just came down, I think. I don't think he had a problem, except that I think he thought he was going to come down to pit road, but Roadback was right there. It's like he had bad spotting up top, and they told him to come down for fuel, but Roadback was on his inside, and that wasn't going to work at all. And the 49 ends up spinning himself as a result and gets his own caution. Riding on board Roadback. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. 49 slowed down, and that ends up putting the 5 in the wall. All the way through turns 3 and 4. And now let's take a look. This is the start-finish line. And the 67 is way far back there. You can see him just above the flagman's head. And Thomas is just coming around right here. Alonso should also be a lap down. Martin beat him to the line barely. But Thomas wants to get down to pit road. And the 67 is right there on his door. But the 72 continues to force his way down there, trying to get to pit road. And gets the 67 into the wall. And that's a heavy hit, even though it looked like it was pretty low speed at the time. And a huge incident developing here. We'll head to a commercial break and be back with more updates at Grand Detour Raceway.
This decision could determine the fate of Stewart Haas Racing. It's do or die. So, what?
Hey, big news, guys. Effective immediately, Taco Tuesdays ago.
Tony, we're talking about restructuring our entire business.
And I'm talking about Taco Tuesday. It's a go. Come on, baby. We're going with it.
Tony.
Tony, okay.
What's happened to me? It's funny that you're right. You're loving me now, see.
Back at Grand Detour Raceway for NFRN Amateur Cup Series racing, Eric Van Arsdale now out of the race. Jake Thomas remains on the track. We haven't heard anything about penalties, but of course with TJ Smith on probation for basically the same incident, we probably won't hear about any penalties until after the race as we get ready to return the green flag action on lap number 50. Pretty bizarre to see almost the same thing happen twice in 3 weeks. But we have to continue racing. Thomas looks like he's out of contention for the victory altogether, while John Gilbert really got an advantage, both by the fact that he was able to pit, catch back up to the cars that didn't pit, and then basically take the lead off that. So a great run for the 31 car, who now has 2 pit stops under his belt, fresh tires, and looking to see if he can wrap it up with a victory. There's Alvin Alonso, had a great run at Riki Raceway in the Elite Cup Series last week, finishing 5th. But in this situation, he is behind Gilbert and trying to see if he can get around him to get back on the lead lap. Along with many other cars, only about half the field caught back up to the front to be able to get their lap back. And now we're looking at TJ Ball and Chris Harley, who both really kind of got an advantage off of their opportunities to stay out. Harley even spun around and he still is up in second place. So somehow that 49 car took his wreck and made it into an advantage. Still trying to keep himself up here in points and possibly contend for a victory, although there's several lapped cars in between him and Gilbert, which can really play a factor into how he's able to catch back up to him. You see Jack Freeman right here trying to make it to the outside. Contact and a wreck back here. And the caution flag comes back out. Looking at Ryan Kendall, we saw Anthony Lopez as well, a front row starter, as well as Jason Thales. Let's take another look at what happened here. And they're really getting squirrely and all bunched up right here. We see the 3 cars in question at the foreground right here. Ooh, and a little contact right there by TJ Smith. Yep, that's the 6 car on the bottom there. And we know he's on probation. But at the same time, that didn't look like contact that was necessarily his fault. We'll look back on that. Wow, Jason Thales on 2 wheels. Actually on 1 wheel. Only his left front making contact with the ground right there. And major airtime for the number 80 machine. And Anthony Lopez getting caught up in that one as well. Let's look on board with the 6 car. And it was really tight and the 6 car pulls away, but honestly, looking at the video evidence, it seems like it was just too close or too much of a judgment call to actually give any fault to the 6 car right there. I think he'll be safe on his probation for now. But that's going to send us to another quick commercial break, and we see the cars getting airborne as Lopez is included in that. We'll be right back with more NFRN Amateur Cup Series racing here at Grand Detour.
Okay, Mr. Edwards, you're all set with Charter Digital, and that's including our sports tier.
Thanks, man.
You got your college sports, football, baseball, game highlights. It's pretty awesome. Hey, you're on TV.
Yeah.
Do you think you could show me how to do that?
How about an autograph?
That's
NASCAR fans, you'll flip for Charter Digital with the sports tier. Call 1-888-GET-CHARTER for this great offer.
Back on RVN with NFRN action. We've got 16 laps to go in this one, the Grand Detour 300, when we get back to green flag, which is coming up right now. And they take off. Well, at least John Gilbert takes off. He seems to be the only one that really got speed off that green flag. 31 trying to see if he can beat out the rest of the field. Colin Lindsay wants to get back on that lead lap. He's running on his corner panel, but not getting the speed in turns 1 and 2 is going to be detrimental to that 95 car as he gets off of turns 3 and 4. And already a number of lapped cars getting in front of Harley, who's running second place right now, and this is really putting the number 49 car at a disadvantage when trying to catch back up to Gilbert. And we see it's a real mess up here. It's Barry Watson. They're getting four-wide contact right there between Ball and Barry Watson. Tyler Reed on their inside. No love lost right there. Watson's trying to find some room to get around Ball. Behind him, Al Calloway, and he is a lap down while Dwayne is not. He's probably going to have some more issues to take with where he's running right now, but a lot of different circumstances putting cars in bad situations. Robert Harrison could have adjusted how he approached pit road. Coming down with pit road traffic has moved him back to 6th place as it runs right now, and after leading the majority of the first laps, about 30 of them, he's not going to be able to catch back up to Gilbert without another caution flag. Even then, that might group all of the cars back together and put Gilbert in a huge gap. We see Radcliffe right here. He's running 8th place right now. He could be on pace to earn his best finish of the season. Jay Jefferson was looking like he was, but he's kind of fading back a little bit right now. He has his best place of 13th at Columbia, running 11th right now, but he's starting to slide as he got the outside line. And the inside line in turns 1 and 2 is a lot better than the outside line in turns 3 and 4. A lot more advantage. I think he would like to be down there right now. We see Sparky the Sun Devil is running 9th place. Could be his first career top 10 as he averages back around the 24th place mark, and he needs a good run for once. Now moving up to 8th place. Another driver that could be on pace for his first top 10, Craig Martin, currently running 11th. Although I think he might have gotten around somebody, and he's going to get around Radcliffe. I think that's going to get him 10th place if he can pull it off in the next turn. Martin off to a pretty subpar start to his season and trying to see if he can work his way up there. And we see Chase Baldwin, who looked like he might have gotten his first career top 10 after averaging about 5 1/3 points every race so far this season. And at this point, it looks like he's faded back to the end of the pack, but he is on the lead lap, which would put him around the top 20, and that would be just good enough for a driver that's been in every accident possible this season. He just wants to finish one of these races, and this might be his opportunity to at least earn a substantial amount of points, even if it's around the top 20 mark. John Gilbert continuing to just pull away from everybody. The two cars behind him, which are Colin Lindsay and 19 car fan, not even a part of the conversation. They're just running back here, trying to get back on the lead lap, and they're hardly ever going to do that with Gilbert running as well as he is. And he has the advantage in those tires. A lot of the field did come down for 2 pit stops after being able to get back in the lead lap, but Gilbert just really took off on the restarts. That was his best part of the race so far today. Being on the lead and getting those restarts, able to get away from Chris Harley, who has a number of lapped cars between him. I mean, now he's stuck behind Griffin Lynn, who has his hood off. Not even sure what came about of that. And that might have been on pit road that he lost that. Could have been some front-end contact, but obviously Harley cannot seem to get around anybody to try to get back up to Gilbert. And the 31 car looks like he's pulling away to an easy victory at this point. 2 laps to go as the 31 car crosses the line. And another car to look at. We haven't even mentioned Roadback. After getting in the wall from his incident with Harley, he's dropped multiple laps. And a guy who finished 4th at Riki might fall out of the top 14. White flag taken for Gilbert. He's got 4 more turns to go. He had to settle not leading most of this race, but once he got through the pit stops and the craziness, the 31 car put himself up there, and now he's going to take the victory here at Grand Detour Raceway. And that makes 4 different winners in 4 races for the Amateur Cup Series. All of them able to clinch up a spot in the chase system. So as we take a look at the final finishing results from this one, John Gilbert able to take home a victory in this one and bring home Dodge's first victory of the season, leaving Ford as the only manufacturer who hasn't taken home a victory in the Amateur Cup Series so far. And who would have thought that Chris Harley would have grabbed 2nd place after spinning himself out off of the side of Justin Roadback, but he was able to do it. And how about one for the part-timers, Adam Kuhn and Barry Watson finishing 3rd and 4th. Kuhn able to finally get a little bit over Barry Watson, but not in the race that really would have counted for him. But great runs for those part-timers, and Kenny Knox able to round out the top 5 to cap off his last good race, which was the win at Mirage. And he had a lot of stellar performances by some of the guys on the back half of the top 10. TJ Ball in 6th, Sparky the Sun Devil in 8th, Craig Martin in 10th. Guys that really haven't run well this season, able to grab that top 10, put themselves up in points position. And you add Robert Harrison in there, who's had great runs in the past 3 races. And Donnie Moore, one of your past winners, coming out in 9th. A little bit further back, Jay Jefferson not able to capitalize on a new best finish, but still a respectable 14th place run. We'll also see back here Ryan Kendall was able to limp his car home to a 16th place finish, while Anthony Lopez came home 18th, and Jason Thales would come home 22nd. All stayed on the lead lap. And Chase Baldwin, a nice 19th place finish, exactly what he needed to try to rebound his season, but he will still probably be pretty far back in the standings when we take a look at them. Colin Lindsay, the first car a lap down, not a great run for him, and he'll pretty much stay about where he is in points. And Connor Mace, who is looking to get at least another top 2 finish, is not going to be able to make that happen, finishing 25th. Back here, all these cars at least 1 lap down. Griffin Lynn somehow 3 laps down. We did see that car lost its hood, so he must have smashed into somebody on pit road. That required them to take the hood off the car just to try to make it run, but not a great run for the 36 car, and the great performances the team was having after their crash at Columbia. And at the back of the field, we see Justin Roback, who was involved in the first accident with Chris Harley, finishing 6 laps down, and still not sure why it took that long for them to make repairs, but can't really go back on that now. And Eric Van Arsdale, who got put into the end of pit road wall, we'll see what kind of penalties get handed down, and whether they side with Thomas or Van Arsdale on who was at fault, because obviously Van Arsdale should have still been a lap down, so why he was near Jake Thomas or running on his side, still undetermined. We'll see how the league reacts to that and what kind of punishment they hand down to either the 72 or the 67 or both teams. Looking at the standings now, Chris Harley is going to keep the top spot with his runner-up finish, but now all the top 4 are your winners so far in this series, and so we obviously know who the most dominant cars of the series so far are. but we'll see who is able to make the next impression. Kenny Knox running 5th, Robert Harrison 6th, Mays 7th. All those guys have been contenders. Mays didn't have the greatest run. Neither did TJ Smith. He finished back in the 30s a lap down. Definitely not a good run, but he definitely tried to keep himself out of trouble after making contact with Jason Thales and obviously trying to avoid wrecking anybody else while on probation, but he remains in the top 10 for now. Craig Martin made a big jump up to 10th place, and looking further back to see where the cutoff spot for the Elite Cup Series qualifying is, we see Sparky the Sun Devil. He somehow jumped from 31st to 14th place after only earning an 8th place finish. So that really showed how close the points race was in that span, but a big jump by the one car, and he's going to try to attempt to qualify for Green Valley Super Speed Ring, which will be our next Elite Cup Series race. But a big run by them. Jay Jefferson's also going to jump into the top 14, as well as Ryan Kendall and Jake Thomas. So we're going to see a lot of new faces trying to qualify for the next Elite Cup Series race, and we might see some of those guys trying to make their debut. 19-car fan who was trying to fight his way into that after getting knocked out via the tiebreaker is just going to be outside of it again, running 16th place, and now he's got to look forward to the next race to see if he can try to get back into it. And we see Barry Watson, who ran great today, finished 4th, all the way up to tied with 18th place. So a great run for the part-timer who's qualified for every Amateur Cup race so far. And Eric Van Arsdale, obviously in the midst of controversy, and his last place finish going to knock him all the way down to 20th place in points. And it'll be just right around Colin Lindsay, the other veteran driver who dropped down to this series. There's Alvin Alonso, also didn't have a great day, and that knocked him all the way down to 22nd, along with his Benkles Motorsport teammate Griffin Lynn, the spot below him. Looking even further back, we see the last of the full-time cars, with the exception of Chase Baldwin, who, despite having a top 20 performance today, still didn't have enough points to really knock himself up into this contention spot, and he is still running 43rd in the points right now among a lot of the part-time drivers that have barely qualified for the races so far this year. So 35 still in a precarious situation, trying to see if he can make his way back into any relevant position. And looking at the team standings competition, we see Callaway Brothers Racing continuing to hold that lead. They didn't have the greatest of days, neither did Jones Smith Racing, so really that gap didn't really close up that much. Gardner Racing, Western Motorsports trying to trail. Ramco Motorsports probably made a big jump just based on Sparky's 8th place finish being that only car that runs on the team in this division. And Eagle Motorsports still trying to bring up the rear. Obviously Chase Baldwin's struggles have been pretty detrimental to nullify Kenny Knox's great run so far this season, but they are trying to close the gap back up on Thunderhawk Motorsports, which fields Alexander Rowe and TJ Ball also having a solid day today. And finally, here are the drivers that we'll see in the next Elite Cup Series race, and we'll see a few number changes along the way. Robert Harrison will inherit the number 75, TJ Smith moving over into number 14, and that car obviously finished 4th with Justin Roback in it, and Roback no longer in the top 14 now. Craig Martin's going to be driving the number 38 he tried to qualify Columbia with. Jake Thomas also running his number 51, Ryan Kendall in 21, Jay Jefferson in the 19, and Sparky the Sun Devil in the 16. All the cars that they ran at Columbia. Well, we hope you all enjoyed today's Amateur Cup Series racing action here at Grand Detour Raceway. Next time this series will be in action is at 8 Bull Super Speedway, but before that we'll be heading to Green Valley Super Speed Ring for the Elite Cup Series All-Star Race and race number 6. For NFRN and RVN, my name is Colin Denton, and we will see you at the races next time.
Louder!